A wave of profound relief and fresh hope washed across the assembly hall the instant Sir Samuel Hoare finished speaking. Delegates who had sat for years watching the League drift toward irrelevance rose in a thunderous ovation that rolled through the chamber like distant thunder over the Alps. The sound carried years of pent-up longing for something solid and true. In the midst of that swelling applause, only one man remained perfectly still. Baron Pompeo Aloisi, Italy's envoy, sat motionless, his face a study in quiet reserve, while the ovation surged around him like a living current. One by one, representatives from nations large and small stood and spoke with measured clarity. Each affirmed that if the Covenant's prohibition against aggression were ever flouted, their government would honor its obligations without hesitation. Even the Soviet delegate, Maxim Litvinov, who had joined the League only the year before, after long isolation, sounded less guarded than usual. He allowed himself a hopeful prediction that this assembly might one day be remembered as a landmark in the organization's renewed history. For a few luminous moments the great hall felt transformed. Late afternoon light softened through tall windows, touching polished wood and the faces of men who dared to believe the League could still matter. Yet away from the public fervor, a handful of cautious voices studied Hoare's text with careful eyes. Searching for subtle loopholes, they lingered over a passage reminding everyone that the risks of peace must be shared by all nations, and that security could not rest solely on the shoulders of a few. Most delegates set those small reservations aside and embraced the straightforward reading offered by Paul Hymans of Belgium. "The British have decided to stop Mussolini," Hymans observed, "even if that resolve might ultimately require the use of force." In the gentle hush that followed, the weight of possibility settled over the room, mingling with the faint scent of polished oak and the distant murmur of the lake beyond the windows. Later that same evening, when the last echoes of applause had faded from the great hall, and the city lights of Geneva began to glimmer like distant stars across the lake, Sir Samuel Hoare returned alone to the quiet sanctuary of his hotel suite. The room felt smaller now, its walls softened by the warm glow of a single bedside lamp that cast gentle shadows across the polished wood, and the heavy curtains drawn against the night. He sat at the small writing desk, with the typed pages of his speech spread before him, reading and rereading each carefully chosen line as though searching for the hidden source of the thunderous response it had awakened. Outside, the waters of Lake Geneva moved in their timeless rhythm, their surface barely stirring under the cool September sky, while inside the suite, the only sound was the faint rustle of paper beneath his fingers and the soft ticking of a clock that seemed to measure something far heavier than mere minutes. In the days and years that followed, Hoare would speak openly about the true intention behind those words. He had never meant them as a solemn vow that would bind his country to military action. He explained with quiet candor. The speech had been crafted as a deliberate bluff, a carefully measured show of resolve designed to give Mussolini pause and to breathe fresh life into an institution that many already feared was dying. The fervor it stirred had surprised even him, turning what was meant as diplomatic theater into something that felt, for one luminous afternoon, almost like genuine conviction. Yet that very surprise carried within it the seeds of tragedy. Subscribe to Night Watch History, where you can find the most immersive World War II documentaries made to help you drift off peacefully every night.